Seidel, thanks for tuning in. And this is a Category 3 now, a major hurricane, our 5th one of the year. And John Hope looked back at the record books, and only 8 years since they started keeping records have we had a season where we've had a Category 3 or stronger hurricane 5 times or more. So quite a year, obviously. And here's the latest visible imagery of Hurricane Roxanne. It's hard to get really a grip on what kind of year we've had so far, but look at the eye of Roxanne now moving right towards the island of Cozumel. Basically the same path that Gilbert took back in 1988, but remember Gilbert in 88 was a Category 5 hurricane. This is a Category 3 with 115 miles per hour sustained winds. No reports obviously now from the airport. Everybody's kind of shutting things down and evacuations have been underway. Plus we have the hurricane warnings up for the Yucatan. It's moving this direction. It will move over land over the next day or so. It's going to take about 20 to 24 hours to get it across the land. And as it moves across the land, Roxanne will weaken somewhat, but then it will reemerge into the waters of the Bay of Campeche later tomorrow or into Thursday, and at that point it will probably re-intensify once it feels the warm water again here in the Bay of Campeche. Here's the latest in from the National Hurricane Center. As of 4 Central Time, we'll have another advisory just before 7 Central or 8 Eastern. We're getting updates now every 3 hours because there are warnings up for parts of the Yucatan and parts of the Mexican coast. 115-mile-an-hour winds, so it continues to strengthen. It's now a Category 3 hurricane, very dangerous. 45 miles southeast of Cozumel, Mexico. That's the little island. Cancun is up here just north of there on the coast. The pressure also falling at 961 millibars, and it's moving west-northwest at 9. We think it will continue that track for the next day or so, re-emerging out here. And at that point, there are a couple scenarios. Most of the computer models the Hurricane Center uses wants to continue taking Roxanne off to the west. That means it would have a second landfall on the Mexican mainland. But if it does move out here and slows down, it could be picked up by a trough moving through the central part of the United States, and that could bring Roxanne up to the north towards the Gulf Coast, anywhere from Texas over to Florida once again. Right now, the odds are that it will continue moving west, but it's not a given that it will not have an impact on the U.S. mainland, so you want to stay with us for the next few days. We'll have at least a couple of more days to kind of ascertain exactly where it's going to go once it moves across land. That's a given, and hurricane warnings are up from Carmen, including Progreso, Cancun, Cozumel, down to Chetumal. All these areas will experience hurricane-force winds. Pretty good tidal surge, too, around Cancun because they are north or to the right of where the eye will make landfall on the mainland here. Here's Cozumel looking back. You can see the darker red, that's the higher cloud tops, the area where you have the strongest convection, and now those heavy rains and those hurricane-force winds are moving on shore. A little geography lesson. Here's the Yucatan Peninsula. This is Mexico and Central America down to Nicaragua and Honduras. Guatemala, Belize right here. Then you get up to the states. These are Mexican states, Campeche, Quintana Roo, and Yucatan, and it's moving in this direction. Cozumel, Cancun, popular tourist destinations are going to get rocked here, and then it will head towards Merida overnight tonight and Friday. We'll keep you posted here at the Weather Channel.
Mike, in Florida, has not been because of the hurricane.
Where rivers flow through lands of wonder, you can almost hear the colors. You better come, you better discover.
Australia, come discover. For your free travel planner, call 1-800-DOWN-UNDER.
Let me just sort of outline the Yucatan Peninsula right about here. You can see it, that's land right on through there. And the center of Roxanne right about so. As you see, it's definitely over land, and that's away from the energy source, which is the warm waters of the Gulf and the Caribbean. But it is heading to the west and will be re-emerging later this afternoon out into those warm waters, and that's where it'll start to gather some strength and energy. But right now, it's still pretty well organized, as you note, even though it is over the land area and has diminished in intensity. When it came on shore yesterday evening on Cozumel, they had top winds at about 115 miles an hour. That's a Category 3 hurricane. Right now, it is a hurricane that is located 20 degrees north, 88.9 west, or 75 miles to the southeast of Merida, Mexico. It is moving to the west now, briskly at 12 miles per hour. Central pressure estimated 975 millibars. Could still weaken to a minimal hurricane, about 75-mile-an-hour winds later on this morning as it continues to traverse the Yucatan Peninsula, which is relatively flat. So there's not a lot of mountains to interact interact with to really knock the stuffing out of it. So while it will weaken because it's not centered over water anymore, it'll still be holding together fairly well. And then when we're really concerned is once it reemerges out into the Gulf later on this afternoon. Now, the water temperatures here still well into the 80s, and that will again provide some fuel and look for the system to start to regenerate itself once again as it gets over the warmer waters this afternoon. But it's projected to continue on that trek